Welcome to Homesroom. Just like Homeroom, we start off our day getting together with our homies, swapping stories, even a little kiss and tell action. This podcast contains language not suitable for younger listeners, topics about sex and mental health. Discretion is advised. Our views are our own. Let class begin. Welcome back to another episode of Homesroom. Normally this is where I talk about whatever we're going to do with the episode, but I forgot to say something right before we started recording. So you're going to hear part of that too. Kaitlin, I just found out that on your side, I should have had you check, but you know how we have the countdown that starts?
Mm-hmm.
So like you can turn that off now, apparently from your side. I don't know. I don't see it that way. So I can't do it because I'm the host. But as the guest, you can, if that seems like something that's going to annoy you, you can turn it off, apparently. So that's pretty interesting. I don't know why or who a countdown would annoy. I feel like that's how we know, okay, let's start. But,
yes,
there's that.
Exactly. Matt, that's how I know when to turn it on for the end.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, 3, 2, 1, stop being a dick. But yeah, anyway, how are you?
I'm doing well, Matt. We're just hanging in, doing the fun motherhood, career-driven, all the fun things that come with that.
I'm clapping.
Thank you. You too just recently started a new job. How is that gig going?
This is really weird because like ordinarily, like with jobs, you also have that thing where like you can only say so much.
Mm-hmm.
So like I can only say so much. So I will simply say it is a job that at some point in time will pay me money. It's definitely interesting. I'm learning about myself a lot, and that's interesting. And I realized sitting in a second grade class, it's so interesting to me to hear the lessons that they're teaching second graders now versus when I was in second grade.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the first real like solid year I remember things that happened in school. So like remembering like what they're learning compared to what I was learning, and it's like, I don't know if they're smarter or I was just dumber. So there's that.
I doubt it was you were dumber, but I think a lot of things about public school and schooling in general have changed since we were in second and third grade, which was a hot while ago, Matt.
Sorry, I was trying to do the math. Almost like 27 years, something like that.
So as we're recording this, today is 9/11, 2023. Yes. Of course, I've seen a lot of we will never forget 9/11, 2001, which of course we all know was the awful, horrific terror attacks that happened in New York and Pennsylvania, the flight that was crashed, and the Pentagon. But yeah, so that was 2001, and it does not, it's not lost on me. I was in second grade when those terror attacks happened. But I had a very Army veteran federal agent father who was very driven on the fact of making sure it was an important incident or event in my mind. I will make sure it is the same for my kids too. I was in fourth grade when he drugged me to the movie theater with my sister to go see that Twin Towers movie, which was super horrific as a young teenager to watch. But we all walked away with a better understanding of what those days look like, what those survivors who were the firefighters that got trapped in the elevator shafts look like. And, not to crack a joke on a terror attack, but for that movie, I think we all walked away with a better understanding that Nicolas Cage looks awful in just a mustache. So that was there's that.
When we first talked like forever ago, that was one of the things that stuck with me is I was like, I like this chick. She just made a Nick Cage joke while talking about like grief and stuff like that. It was so good. I'm glad that's where that went, because that's as soon as you brought that movie up, I was like, I think that's the movie with Nick Cage that she made that comment about. So good.
Yep. Yeah. And I was a graduate teaching fellow in grad school, and I made that a extra credit assignment for the students that I taught that semester that we were in September, so the fall semester, and I told them to watch the movie and write me a 2-page paper on it, double spaced, which is really just a 1-page paper. Fun fact, college students. And for a lot of them, it was the first time that they'd ever seen anything that gave, any kind of detail about that attack. And, there's obviously a lot that comes with that. So I think this episode is airing far after September. So
yeah.
Nice rabbit hole for all of our listeners. Thank you for paying attention and listening to our rant. But yes, as we are recording this, it is September 11th. So
It is. It is, and it's one of those things that's like huge to me. I won't go like too far into it specifically, but just know that I grew up in the DC, Virginia, Maryland area, and that was definitely a crazy time. Just after that is when my family decided to move to the Midwest because of all that stuff. But I mean, like, I lived in an area where jets were still flying low cover over our houses because that's how close we were to all of that. So it's definitely something, again, just kind of was. But on to slightly like lighter things. I got a really good friend and podcast co-host to interview my mom, and I finally got her to listen to it, and I told her I would give her feedback to you in person, and I forgot to do it before we started recording. So I will let you know that she said it wasn't that bad. I felt way better after listening to it, and she did a really good job. I love that, Kaitlin.
Thanks, Mama Holmes. Oh, that Faye. We adore her too. That was an absolute joy. And I think we've talked about it before too, or when like, it's always a very unique opportunity for me to be able to talk to the mothers of my friends, especially in adulthood. I have several friends where I've been able to talk to their moms or have a relationship with some of my friends' moms, where my mom died when I was 14. My dad is also gone. So it's an interesting dynamic to be able to just pick their brains about being a mom to an adult. But yeah, that was a joy. She's wonderful. And, I know she was kind of intimidated or a little bit afraid to come on to the podcast as part of our badass women series, or badass bosses or boss babes, whatever it was. Yeah. As part of that series. So I think it was awesome that she opened herself up to the vulnerability of an interview that she had no idea what to expect. But that's Mama Holmes. So again, if any of you listen to that episode and love it and adore her as much as we do, please be sure to give us some feedback and tell her as such, because she was awesome. And again, my favorite quote from that interview is, I'm going to work it out, or it's going to work me out. It's like, I got to learn how to let things go. So still learning that, Mama Holmes.
Oh man. So one of the things about this podcast that I love is that we're super like real, I guess. And, flubs and weird sentences that don't make sense quite the way we wanted them to, like talking about episodes that to us are in real time just a couple weeks ago, but for you, like months ago, all that kind of stuff. That entire time Kaitlin was talking, I'm pretty sure I was like adjusting my headphones because my hair got longer. So my hair grows up, and I couldn't get them to be where they needed to be. And I was like, I can't hear what she's saying. That's so weird. But so she rolled with that pretty well. So that just another feather in that cap of being a badass. Thank you, Kaitlin. Thank you.
Well, between that and all of our other editing flubs that we've had along the way, which we will not mention right now, we'll just keep them as a surprise for all of you later on.
Bet you out there don't even know which ones we're talking about, which means I did my job on the editing side.
Just know that while we're sitting here recording, I am an idiot. I don't know what the right direction of gain it means on my microphone. And I'm just giving Matt all of the great pop quizzes of audio editing.
Yeah,
but yeah, so So yeah, we're sitting here recording in September. One of our most recent episodes that came out was our first, I want to say it's our first hot topic episode, where it was one of the first episodes that we recorded, and we both were like, oh, we need topics that get us both heated, because I think those are the most entertaining episodes, or the episodes that get us, the most fired up. They're great. So we had an episode recently that aired about women and the expression of sexuality. And I told Matt right before we recorded that I kind of wanted to have a conversation about some of the feedback that I got on my stance about that episode. If you have watched that or listened to that episode, if you haven't, please go back and do. But some specific topics that we talked about were, Matt had a great point of, men who happen to be most likely the largest critics of women and their expression of sexuality are also perhaps the largest consumers of content that women are expressing sexuality. We also briefly touched on abortion. We talked about some of my experiences of being a young civilian female in the law enforcement profession, some of the comments that I've gotten from some supervisors. We talked about how, as a female, as a woman, there are certain relationships in my professional career that took an ugly turn once some gentleman realized I wouldn't sleep with them, is what it is. So I told Matt specifically, and earlier this week, I sent him a screenshot or a copy paste of some feedback that I got from one of our listeners from that episode. Let me also preface this conversation with, we have said multiple times here on the Homesroom podcast that we are welcome to all feedback. Right, wrong, indifferent, whether you've got questions, comments, concerns, good feedback, bad feedback about an episode. We want to hear it all, right? So I sent Matt an Instagram message where I had a gentleman who messaged me and said, in the part of that episode where I had a conversation with my supervisor, where I said, he came up to me and he talked to me and he said, you just have that old school work ethic. And I rebutted that conversation here with my homie Matt. And I said, well, why does it have to be old school? Why can't it just be work ethic, period?
Yeah.
His feedback to that part of the conversation, granted, I've just prefaced this with all the other larger conversations and topics that we've hit on in that podcast episode. He said, it's not a question, it is a fact that work ethic has changed from the 1990s to now. And it was so interesting that you pretended to not understand that compliment. He said, okay. My response to that was, respectfully, I disagree. Work ethic is work ethic, period, point blank. I wanted to bring that up because I feel like there's some maybe additional context to that conversation with the supervisor. I adored him. He was great. It was not coming from a place of malice. It was not coming from a place of, trying to talk me down or whatever. But it all stems from specifically this mentality of millennials and our generation feel entitled. We have participation trophies. We have this, we have that, whatever. The fact that he looked at me and said, you have that old school work ethic, taps into that stereotype of millennials where none of us want to work hard for anything. We just feel entitled to stuff. I did not pretend to misunderstand that compliment. I thought it was very interesting, but I also wanted to bring it up because the inverse to that was another message that I wanted to highlight as part of this conversation, Matt. And I told you one of your roller derby friends messaged me. And if it's not very clear, the message that I just talked about was from a man. This message that I'm about to talk about is from a woman. And she said specifically, "You were so spot on this episode. I can't tell you how many coworkers that I've had who have written me off or had, toxic relationships with me after they realized that I won't sleep with them. And I really love how passionate you are, but specifically how passionate you are about women." And I feel like it's really interesting conversation to have about those two messages of feedback that I've got, specifically because one was from a man, one was from a woman. I don't know. Maybe I just didn't do a great job explaining that conversation or that comment. I still stand by everything that I said, Matt, but I don't know. What are your let me step off my soapbox here, Matt. What are your thoughts about that? I know I sent you a copy paste of that that message that I got. What were your thoughts when I sent that to you?
Originally, I didn't know it was a dude that said it, and I think that bit of context completely changes it to me. I just assumed it was somebody that listened to it, whatever, could have been a girl, could have been whoever, and they just didn't get what you were saying. Because to me, I hate that too, because just in general, anything that says old school. So as a black person, when you're you got that old school mentality of work ethic, it's so a slave. Is that what you're trying to how far old school are we talking? Because right now you're treating me like I'm just supposed to be doing this work, and I'm doing 4 other people's jobs because you're not doing your job. Where are we going? So I hate that I hate that compliment, air quotes, just in general. But knowing that it came from a guy, it kind of makes it that get in the kitchen undertone to it, you know what I mean? Where they're yeah, you just don't understand that me giving you a compliment in any way, you should just bow at my feet because it was a compliment. That guy was being nice to you because, after all, you're a dumb woman that should be in the kitchen, and you're not in the kitchen. So that in itself should just be evident. Not saying that is specifically what that person meant, but that's just kind of how I take it in that way that's being said. But then on the flip side, somebody, messaging you and saying how spot on you are with their feelings. I think that's the message. People are going to disagree, and that's fine. People are going to disagree and reach out, and that's also fine. But people are going to reach out and say, "I feel seen," and that's the goal.
Yes. And, honestly, Matt, you made me feel better when I sent that message to you. And I think your response was you created a response, but that means that someone was intently listening, which is true. But that is also why I prefaced bringing up that message with the point of these are all the other topics that we talked about in that episode. And that's what you walked away from the episode with. Kind of a callback to our very first episode, maybe second episode that we ever had, where we were talking about being self-published authors and somebody nitpicking our work, saying oh, there's not a comma here on page 64 out of 42,000 pages or whatever. That's what you walked away with in the larger scale or the larger picture of things. So, but yeah, either way, I still think that somebody taking the time to send us some feedback about an episode is a great thing. I still stand by the idea and the concept that we welcome all kinds of feedback. If you have any types of, any type of topic suggestions or feedback or comments, compliments, whatever, about prior episodes or current episodes that we have done, it's all great. And I do agree with you, Matt. If we're eliciting any type of response, that means that we're having a fun time and we're having the harder conversations. Either way, I still feel very thankful that that was a conversation that we were able to have, and that you allowed me to be a part of that. So thank you so much. It's always a blast here at the Homesroom podcast.
Yeah. Like I said, I love that series in general. And like, as the episodes are coming out, I'm just like, the feedback that I'm getting from people like, oh, that was really good. Or, oh, this was this thing. And like, knowing that, like, that's what that, like, we just keep going from there. Like, that's not, it doesn't just stop there. It keeps going from there. It makes me really happy. And, I think that was like kind of the real, like, we already jumped off that ledge together, but that was where we started to really gel, and episode ideas and things that we were more comfortable talking about with each other, so the conversations became more real, and I really appreciate that. And like, today is a Monday, we record on Mondays, Homesroom drops on Monday, but the interview with the cuddly antelope, like, I absolutely loved that conversation, and that's somebody that I've followed, I've looked up to, I've, thought like they're amazing, they're honest and open, and to be able to emulate that kind of thing in a podcast form with you is like, it makes me feel like I'm also adding something to this world of like authenticity, and I like that. So
it was a great interview, and I was very thankful that I had that to listen to on my 45-minute commute to work this morning. But yeah, good. So, all right. So this week on the pod, what are we talking about, Matt?
You added to the old Google Docs. Can we do an episode on, I don't know, I'm not a Reddit person, so I don't know if I'm using this term correctly, but I don't want to say I'm not a Reddit I don't know the terms. I'm not hip on Reddit. So is it a subreddit of Am I the Asshole? And yes. I was like, absolutely, that sounds really fun. So I asked you what
this topic was one of my suggestions, because it's one of the types of content that I love consuming. So Matt and I have both gone out into the internet and picked out a couple Am I the Asshole prompts. Matt, would you like to kick us off with your first Am I the Asshole prompt?
Yeah. So I asked you how many we were supposed to do, and I needed to know, because there's so many that were just like funny. And then you were like, I don't know, maybe do a couple, because like, we have time to talk about them. And I was looking into how long some of the like explanations for the questions were, and I was like, those aren't as fun, because you're just justifying why you are or aren't the asshole. And if you're going to justify it, then where's the question? So I'm going to give these context lists, because I think that might be funner for some of them. So, there's the titles of them, and then you can click into them and see. But I think that they could be, I don't know, fun. What do you think? Do you think that that's a fun way to do it?
Or do you want absolutely. I want you to do the preface of, so the type of content is, am I the asshole for telling my mother-in-law off for blah blah blah, and that's where you start it, and you go into the explanation. So
yeah,
go off, King.
My first one is, am I the asshole for preferring to eat food I actually like? And I think that one's really funny, because that starts a lot of arguments in relationships. And like I said, I didn't want to go too far into like what their explanation was, but I will just say, no, you are not the asshole for eating food that you actually like, because guess what? If you're going out to eat and your homies or your boyfriend or your girlfriend or whoever it is, because it's just a random username, so I don't know what you are, but if you guys are like, oh man, I want fried chicken, oh man, I want burgers, guess what? You can both stop at two different places, go home happy. Like, you got what you want, they got what they want, everybody's happy, nobody's eating dry ass chicken and they wanted a burger, or nobody's eating greasy ass burgers and they want a dry ass chicken.
True.
That's all I got to say about that one.
Yep.
All right, what's your first one?
All right, so here we go. I have two specifically. They're a little long, but I just wanted to pick a couple specific to the context of us being authors, us having some creative discussions about creatives, all of that. So, am I the asshole for ignoring my friend after they wasted my time on an art commission? So, me and my friend have known each other for a while, about 6 months, and they've always sent me photos of their character that they bought art of. Recently, they decided to commission some art from me. I was super excited as this was my first art commission and I wanted to get to work straight away. However, they didn't know what they wanted. They wanted me to come up with all the ideas. After an hour of trying to figure out what they wanted, they decided to go with a different scenario. I was a little annoyed that I just wasted an hour, but I shrugged it off and I got on with drawing the sketch. After an hour, I sent them a drawing of the sketch for them to tell me the changes that they wanted before they paid for the rest to be drawn. They told me a few changes they wanted, so I did them, and I sent them another draft of the sketch. They still didn't like it, and they said something felt off, but didn't specify what they wanted changed. I edited it again, and they still said it looked off, and then suggested a whole different scenario. At this point, I was pretty annoyed because they wouldn't tell me what was wrong until I asked them, and they gave me a vague description. Once again, I edited the photo. I sent it back, and they said, they just said that they were not feeling it and they didn't want it anymore. I was then super annoyed because the whole situation took approximately 5 hours and wasted a lot of my time, and they barely apologized. So, am I the asshole for ignoring them after they wasted my time, after I worked so hard on their art commission? I wanted to bring this one up just because we've had, several conversations about being creative. I personally, in my opinion, I can see it both sides, not to be a fence sitter. I'm kind of on the side of the artist here, Matt. Only because it feels to me that they were doing their best to communicate their expectations as the artist, their expectations as the person that was creating this drawing, and the person that was the commissioner, their friend, didn't really feel like they were doing maybe their best to communicate their expectations. It was just like I don't know. Like, if you're going to have feedback for a person that has, spent time crafting for you to not have solid feedback other than, I don't know, I don't like it. It doesn't really feel super genuine to me, and it doesn't really feel like it's a great use of anybody's time. What do I know?
Yeah.
So, do you think they are the asshole, Matt?
70-30, maybe? Like 70-30, not the asshole. They are slightly the asshole simply because, like, you could just be like, hey, that wasn't cool. Like, I spent the time on this thing. I don't like doing business with people like that. But also, I'm speaking from experience in that exact realm. And I also was just like, you know what? I'm just not responding to you because you're, I'm trying to make this work between me using you as like an artist, and you are not, like, having the opposite effect of, like, where, like, I'm trying to give you feedback and because I need this art to look a certain way, and you're just kind of like, meh. Like, so I feel both sides of it, like you said, but I don't think they're an asshole. I would think that they are not an asshole. Your time is valuable, but also your creativity and, whatever. I think all that is more important.
I wish on Reddit they would have included, like, pictures of the drafts that they created. Also specifically if they would have like shown something about the amount of time and effort that went into those drafts, I think would have been very enlightening. But I agree. I don't think they're the asshole. And I fully stand by the ideal that if you want to root for an underdog, root for a creative person, because flexing a creative muscle regularly, and especially jumping into the unknown of making your creative skill your you know, how you pay for food, is a really brave thing. If I've learned that in adulthood, it is that. So, all right, Matt, what's your next? Am I the asshole?
All right. So this one's really funny, and like I specifically want, like, I want your opinion before I give my opinion, specifically because it is the wife side of things. So,
Copy.
this one is: am I the asshole for calling out my wife in front of our friends because she keeps sneaking off with her phone to watch a live stream of a concert? And again, I didn't want to look up like the I didn't want to look up the details because like that title alone is just so gold. So, what do you think? Is he the asshole for calling out, or are they the asshole for calling out their wife in front of their friends because she keeps sneaking off to watch the live stream?
It depends on the concert. And I only say this because I have not skipped out on anything to watch a concert. But have I hidden in the bathroom at work to watch the spring Kate Spade Fashion Week show? Absolutely. Okay. Did I see a pair of shoes that I absolutely had to have? And still to this day, I have. And I found the very last pair on my size on Amazon.
Ooh, congratulations.
And I want to be buried in these shoes. You don't even understand. They're just that beautiful. Trust me. I promise you, they're beautiful. Do you have any details about what concert it was?
No, like I said, I think that's the part that makes it really challenging to answer. And for me, that's the fun of this. Knowing the context gives you context.
I wish I would know what concert it was. There are very few concerts that I would know, or that I would allow for me to, pull me from reality or whatever. But also, can we just pose the hypothetical question? Why is the husband planning social events around live streams of very incredible concerts? I don't know. I've seen so much. As we're recording this, Beyonce is on her US tour. Taylor Swift is on her Eras tour. I could see several of my friends blowing off their real world obligations to watch a live stream of either of those concerts. So again, I think it kind of depends on what the concert was. Are there concerts that I would probably do the same for? Yes. Off the top of my head, I would say maybe a Ozzy Osbourne live stream of a concert back in his prime, because now he is not performing as well as he did at a younger age, but that's okay. I don't know. That's so interesting. I think it's always a fun, creative discussion in the context of marriage, of trying to understand and be sympathetic to your partner's interests. Specifically, as we're recording this, college football has started again on the weekends. And I don't give a fuck. I don't care. I do not care. Roll Tide, because my old lieutenant at my old job used to come in crabby as shit on Monday mornings if Bama lost. So I would only pay attention so I knew what kind of mood to anticipate he was coming into work with. But I don't care. I don't care about college football, and I know that my husband does not care too much about some of the musical acts that I care about. So it's always a delicate walk of trying to support your partner without feeling like you're being walked all over, if that makes any sense, Matt.
It does. All right. So my take on, is this person an asshole or not, is, can you save it for a time when you were doing the same thing and she gets mad. Because if you can, then yes, you're an asshole. Save that. Save that. Because like I can't tell you how many times we've had to go do something on a race weekend, and I'm like, dude, I wanted to watch the race, but I guess I won't because we have to go do this thing. And then I learned if I sneak away or if I try and listen to it, then it's like I can't be mad later on when she's not happy about doing something, or she's like, "Oh no, I just want to try and watch this," or she's playing games on her phone because she's bored. Like there's a give and take. There's a give and take. So if you're gonna just complain about it, call her out, but you also do the same thing, then yes, you are an asshole. If you hang out and just like, I know what you're doing, and maybe it comes back up, maybe it doesn't. No, you're not an asshole. You're just an attentive husband who saw a situation and you realize, hey, you're trying to take care of you. Later on, when I'm trying to take care of me, I just also better, be given a little bit of courtesy there.
Do you feel better that I gave my perspective first, or?
Yeah, I do. Because for me, it was like, if you were like, no, yeah, absolutely, you're an asshole, I would have been like, oh, well, maybe there is not a tit for tat in this situation the way I assumed that there would be. But
no,
you kind of went there too.
It's all relative. But yeah. So, okay. My last. Am I the asshole? Am I the asshole for calling my friend a bigot for being against diversity in Hollywood? Bear with me, Matt. Here we go. I, female, 46, and friend, male, 50. I had just finished watching the new Little Mermaid. Loved it. We're talking about the live action remake with Halle, who is beautiful, stunning, iconic, amazing. And I made a passing comment about how I didn't understand why there was so much controversy about the main actress being a person of color. This somehow led into a huge conversation about diversity in Hollywood. He is also male, 50 friend. He is also ticked off that the new Snow White is also apparently going to be a person of color. I mean, honestly, I had no idea he cared this much about the supposed integrity in fairy tales. I'm looking forward to how they're going to spin the tale. After a very lengthy discussion, I said I was going to post his final point here and let Reddit be the judge. I was exhausted by the end of the conversation and did end up calling him a bigot. His final point is as follows, quote, "If I were to make a movie about my years in high school, it would have to be an all-white cast and no black people, no Asian people, no indigenous people, and nobody who was gay or bisexual. Telling me I would have to use people of other races and other sexual orientations would make it not true, because there weren't any people like that in my high school. If someone is making a movie that doesn't include people of color or a different sexual orientation, they shouldn't be penalized for it. It's just going down the checklist and ticking off all of the token actors you have in it." He also tried to point out that apparently there is a new show out where a black woman plays Anne Boleyn. I don't know if you've seen this controversy, Matt, and wanted to know how I felt about it. I am practically obsessed with Anne Boleyn, and I'm excited to see this and really interested to see how they work it. Yes, I'm aware that Anne Boleyn was in fact almost startlingly white, but I honestly don't see why it should matter so much. I really feel like he's being bigoted, but I will accept an I'm an asshole judgment if I'm overreacting. And I'm not overreacting, but can someone please help me explain it to him? I feel like he talks me in circles until I don't know what I'm defending anymore. So, thoughts, Matt?
I mean, that's a lot right there.
It is so much. So please do not feel obligated to download everything in your brain. But
well, it's just like, I don't know. It's one of those things where, like, on one hand, if you grew up, like, if you went to school in a rural area and, like, all the families had lived there forever and, moms and cousins and uncles and everything, like, family trees look like vines, and it's hard to know who's related in what way to what
Family
person.
trees look like wreaths.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Both sides of my family are from West Virginia. You're not offending anything by saying that. So I'm just
yeah.
like,
yeah, it just becomes this weird, this like like your uncle is also your cousin by marriage on another side. Like when it is that way, if everybody's white, then yeah, like having a black character in that particular movie, if it was made about you, it would not make sense because that was not a thing. Do I agree with like the checking off a token box? I think while sometimes that may be true or may have been true, I don't think that that's the case now. I think it's just like, why can't we tell this story with like this character or this person? How can we better tell this story in a new light in comparison to what it has always been told as? Like there's always, to me, it seems like there's always reason for it, and you can tell when there is reason for it and when there's not reason for it in those. So like I have like discrepancies in those points where like, yes, you're kind of an asshole, but also kind of not an asshole. But in the end, it's kind of like, if you have to talk in circles and ask if you're the asshole about those things, you kind of might be the asshole, and you should just like maybe like give it up and just be like, whatever, dude, I'm gonna go over here.
yeah. Okay, so first and foremost, let me preface this by saying anyone who wants to hold some critique about Disney, I'm here for it. Specifically, I told my husband, once Disney bought the rights to Star Wars from
Lucas or Fox?
Lucasfilms.
Yeah.
Lucasfilms. Thank you, Matt. God, Lucasfilms. I told him, Disney is going to turn the Star Wars universe into a cash cow where they are just going to sit here and wring the neck of every little juicy detail of character development and side story and mini series that they can get out of this massive universe until it's cheapened. It's awful. The storytelling's awful. All the things. And guess what the hell happened, Matt? That.
Yeah.
You can say what you want, but what's his face of the with Emily? What's her face from Game of Thrones with the young Harrison Ford? What was that?
Yeah. Solo.
Yes, the Han Solo movie. My husband was so excited to watch it in theaters. I was so excited to watch it with him. I was less than excited about the previews. Legitimately, the first fucking time I have ever paid that much money to take a nap in a movie theater. The Han Solo movie was the first movie that I fucking fell asleep to in the movie theater, and I stand by that 100%. So I totally understand some critique about Disney and where their thoughts are about some of the movies that they're developing and maybe what their motives are with things like this, or, specifically the like live action remakes of a lot of the Disney characters. However, there was a comment on this Reddit post that I really identified with. Specifically, first and foremost, fairy tales are fiction. Fun fact. Don't know if anybody knew this. Fairy tales are fiction. Period.
Yep.
Doesn't matter who is the role or who's the main character, who are the supporting characters, any of that. They're fiction. Second, most of these tales were written by men who probably never saw a black person. So, of course, they described them as white. But that doesn't mean that they have to be any one color. Thousands, and this is not my an original thought of my own brain. I'm reading somebody else's comment. Thousands of little black girls were mesmerized by a white Ariel. Why can't thousands of little white girls be mesmerized by a black Ariel?
Absolutely.
Why would no one force this actor to cast his hypothetical autobiography in any way differently than he wants, specific to the original prompt, whatever. This person ends the comment by saying your friend is a bigot and trying to justify it by claiming, quote, but this is how it's always been, end quote. Too bad for him. The world turns and change is constant. And yeah. I know I've talked a lot about my career, about working in public safety, law enforcement. It is my favorite criminal justice answer to get, where I'm like, well, why do we do this specific process in 16 different steps when I'm looking at this and I'm just asking, like, we could probably do it in 6. Oh no, it's just how it's always been done. Okay, but that doesn't mean that that's the most efficient or right way, you know? But yeah, I picked this prompt specifically because it feels super well timed. It feels like it's something that both of us would have a strong opinion about. But yeah, I'm also from the perspective of a parent, like, you know, my 2-year-old, she's going to have a different connotation about the Little Mermaid than I did growing up. And I don't think that's a bad thing, Matt. Thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things where, like, parents can choose to do whatever parents choose to do. And I often have this, like, psychotic break when I, like, would pick up the girls or drop the girls off at school, when it's like, there is nobody that, like, looks like my kids for my kids to see. And if there are, there's only like maybe 2 or 3 of them. They're spread out between age ranges, so it's not like they actually would interact with each other. And I don't know how you could choose and want to choose to live in a place with so little diversity. And furthermore, like, why you would choose to only take in content that has no diversity into it. Like, just even a little bit, where, like, you know, gender swapping a role that, like, that's not necessary to do it, but, like, telling this role from the perspective of a female now is different and fresh, and it's like, oh, I wouldn't have thought about that, and I'm not disappointed. Like, you know, for instance, I don't think I enjoyed the movie specifically because it just wasn't my kind of, like, I thought I was expecting more action than it had, and it was more of like a spy thriller than I was expecting. But the role of Angelina Jolie in Salt was actually originally written for Tom Cruise.
What?
And
Stop
he
it.
turned it down. So then they changed it because she was interested. So they changed the entire role to be her. So it was written, all of those fight scenes were written to be a man fighting. And when they went to go change the scenes, she fought on some of those changes because she was like, why can't I do it? Like, why wouldn't I be able to do this? Some of it, like,
pause for the cause, Matt. You're telling, okay, hold on. Let's regroup. You're telling me that Salt, that's the one where Angelina Jolie, spoiler alert, is a Russian sleeper spy. Okay.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Yeah.
Awesome movie.
I didn't go into it expecting the right thing. I'm not saying it was bad.
You are telling me that role was originally written for Tom fucking Hanks?
Tom Cruise.
Sorry. Pardon me.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise?
Yeah.
Extra interesting if it was written for Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks, yeah.
I'm getting, like, terminal flashbacks.
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. It was that's what it was written for.
Really?
Yeah. And I think it might have even gone to, like, pre-production with him still attached, and then he dropped out for whatever reason, and, like, yeah, and then she took over. And I always think that is super interesting because that happens more often than people think, where an actor is attached and then they have to change it, and then it just becomes this weird thing.
Okay. I just pulled up the Wikipedia page. Not that you needed any extra verification that what you're saying.
No, I could be wrong. No, I could fact check me. I could be wrong. I can't remember.
No. Originally written with a male protagonist, with Tom Cruise initially secured for the lead. Okay. I see.
Yeah. And I think that in itself changed the dynamic of that movie. And I wanted to go see it more because it was this badass female spy. I just didn't know it was I didn't know what the movie was specifically going to be about. And that kind of like threw me for a loop watching it. And yeah, so the scene specifically that got the most flack was her fighting in the back of like the armored truck.
Yep.
Because she was getting worked bad, and they were like, we can't show this scene. We cannot have this woman getting beat this badly in this situation. We have to do something different. Can't he just smack her and throw her to the ground? And ultimately that fight scene stayed the way it was supposed to be, because she said, why can't it be? If I'm in this role and I'm doing this thing, you think they're just going to smack me? And do you think I'm just going to take it? And I was like,
well,
damn.
Here on Holmes Room, that was Matt Holmes with his random movie fact for the podcast episode.
Yeah. Bingo card.
If you have not seen that movie, please go watch it and report back to us. I am particularly a huge fan of thriller, action, comedy, spy movies. So for me, Salt was like a really great breath of fresh air when I was like super bored with everything else that was out and about. So for me, it feels like Angelina Jolie is like super overdone and just like, but I really loved that movie. And yeah, it was great. Yeah. If you haven't watched it, please.
All right. I got one more. I got one more. And this one I did pull the description because I had to know, because I was like, wait, what? And this one is, am I the asshole for beating my husband at wrestling in front of our kids? And I thought it was so funny. And I was like, wait, what? Let me get some context. So, am I the asshole? So some background. I, 32 female, grew up an athlete, played 3 varsity sports in high school, went on to play D1 softball in college. My husband, 33 male, played sports casually as a kid, then did a few seasons of high school football and nothing in college. We met shortly after graduation, and while we never tested it at the time, I think we both knew that I was likely stronger. So sorry, my phone decided, there we go. Swiping on a picture is bringing up everything else. Last night my hubby and I each had a few glasses of wine while we were watching some random TV show, and the main female fought several men at once, and my 6-year-old son and 8-year-old daughter began to debate the topic, which led to a family discussion and gender roles and stuff, which eventually led to talking me into wrestling my husband. And sorry, I lost my spot. No, I lost my spot, and now I can't pull it back up. That's what I get for screenshotting, and it won't. It cuts off like that last little bit. That's my fault. But it says they wrestled. He lost, and he claimed to have let her win. That was the gist of the spot that's cut off that I can't see.
Woof, bro.
So was she the asshole for beating him, or not?
If it was legitimately she beat him, no, she's not the asshole. Is the husband the asshole by saying, "Oh, I let her win"? I would say yes, he's probably the asshole. And I think that as a parent, that would be a very fun, unique opportunity for you to teach your kids, I don't know, a fun, creative lesson about, like, sometimes women can beat men's ass, or, I don't know. we weren't there. We don't know his side of the story, this, that, whatever the hell, everything else that comes with that, whole discussion or whatever. I'm just off of face value of the facts as presented by Matt Holmes in his description of the incident. I'm going to say that the guy is the asshole by saying, oh, I let her win, if that was not actually an accurate description of what happened.
Yeah.
Because to me, that sounds like fragile ego or, and also, as somebody who is raising a very, very young son, a full embodiment of all of the stereotypes of, men can't show weakness. They can't show any type of emotional, vulnerability, all of the things that come with that. So I stand by my answer, Matt. I said what I said.
Yeah. She's definitely not the asshole in that situation. Winners get to write the history, man. That's what they say, right? No, yeah, like I said, I thought that one was funny, and deserved a little bit of context. But
I love that one. That was great.
Yeah, we're coming up on the end of this here episode, and I still love wrapping up the episode with that's what she said. So, what we got today, my friend?
My that's what she said is specific to the topic of this episode. Matt and I have had some creative discussion about, am I the asshole? And in the context of your journey, not to sound super granola, your adventure, everything that comes with that is somebody will always think that you are the asshole. Even with the best intentions, you will still likely be the villain in somebody's story. That does not necessarily mean that you are a bad person. That doesn't necessarily mean that you are somebody who is operating under ill intentions. Every story needs to have a villain. Do not let the fear of you being perceived negatively by somebody stop you from acting in the best interest of you, your emotional and your mental health, and all the things that come with it. I recently had a very interesting discussion with a family member who was dead to me. Who popped back into my life. And they kind of clarified after my mom had died. My mom's family had treated her like garbage for the last couple of years that she was alive. And then after she passed away, came around asking for money, all of the fun, super toxic family things that come with death and the crow's circle. If you have read my book, shout out, Lessons I Learned from Two Dead Parents, available now on Amazon. One of the lessons is when death comes, the crow's circle. Those are specific examples of crows in my life who, after my mom died, treated her like garbage, came in, felt like they were entitled to settlement money, all of the fun things that come with that. No matter what, when you are trying to better yourself, better your life, leave the world better than you found it, there will still probably be someone who is envious of how you are operating. They're envious of, the values that you live your life by, or they are just upset in general that their life doesn't look like yours. And that's okay. Do not let the fear of being perceived negatively by someone who does not understand any intimate details of your life or how you operate stop you from doing the right thing or doing something that is healthy for you, your family, your mental health, your emotional health, or any of that. So, do not be afraid to be the asshole. This is the Am I the Asshole episode. Do not be afraid to be perceived as the asshole from someone who does not understand 100% of where you're coming from, the full context of the situation, all the things that come with that. So that's what she said, Matt. Let me step down from my soapbox, but also let you know that if you are coming from the best of intentions, if you are coming from a good place and you know that you are only here to put good into the world and be a good person, anybody who thinks differently is not your intended audience.
Yeah.
That's what she said, Matt.
Love that.
Period.
Perfect. Yeah, I love that. No words. That's it. That's all I got. You like that's 100% it. People are in your life to either teach you lessons or to show you what you shouldn't do. So, nope.
Preach.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you and this episode, and doing some quick math. This episode will be out the week before Christmas. So I hope that you have in the future a Merry Christmas with your family.
Same, Matt. I hope you have a great Christmas and you enjoy some of Mama Home's great quiche and all the fun things that come with that. And that you get to continue to love on your daughters and give them some of the magic and joy of Christmas that I am just now starting to be able to put onto my own children.
Yeah. I'm excited, and I'm excited that like I made a new friend, that like we get to have these conversations once a week, and you know how that's going to go. And you know, spoiler alert, the way we plan these episodes, we will probably take a break, so we might not have these conversations every week on our side. But for you guys, it'll continuously be episodes, and you will have known that because by the time this airs, we might not be talking every week. But again, I appreciate you and everything that you do. I appreciate all you listeners for everything that you're doing. You know, get involved. Join the conversation. Tag us in your Christmas pictures, whatever you got to do, because we want to see you just as much as you want to hear us. So
we adore you. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Homesroom podcast. And we will catch you next week. When we're what? On Christmas?
Yeah. Future past us is now future us, and future us is now past us.
Oh God, Matt.
Boom.
You know, I have a headache.
The bell is about to ring. If you want to drop us a voice message or simply ask a question, you can do that by clicking the link in the show notes below. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review. It helps more people find us. Theme music by Kinsey. More music available on Spotify. Remember, every day is a class. Go learn something.